is not folly. It's not funny. This is not a game. If you look at any tyranny or any autocracy, any sort of dictatorship, the first thing they do is they get rid of the media. They try to silence the media. Ask Turkey about that, Erdogan. Ask Iran about that. Ask any country that has lost its way, that has been overtaken by a dictator. They get rid of the press first. And so we need to start standing up. And I got to say that from what I've heard, I haven't had a chance to see it. I've heard that my former colleagues at CNN all came out pretty unanimously, pretty strongly to support me. I understand. I believe that CNN released a statement. I've heard that CNN released a statement. Thank you very much. I have no animus for CNN. I have no animus for anyone, but I tell the truth as about what I see. And I think it's time for all journalists to stand up for each other. So I appreciate that. And at CNN, I worked with the best journalists in the world. So I wish them nothing but the best. But I believe those journalists as well need to stand up to the corporation. They need to tell Warner Brothers Discovery, stop playing and get your hands out of the newsroom.
On January 30th, ABC News reports, according to ABC News, Lemon appeared in court and was released on personal recognizance, vowing to continue his reporting. Okay, so he was vowing, and I'm saying this paraphrasing here, he was vowing to continue the truth. He did release like a small caption on Instagram where he was saying that he is committed to telling the truth regardless of anything. He is committed to telling the truth, always, because he has been a journalist for the past 30 years. So here's one thing about Lemon really quickly, a side note before I continue the quick little summary here, and then we'll get into the article a little bit deeper. I know in one of my TikToks I mentioned how, Lemon was fired from CNN or whatever, and in one of my TikToks there was a commentary at a question, because in my video I was like, I know that some people don't care for Don Lemon because of there are allegations and claims that he is misogynistic and that he's done some questionable things in regards to some of his comments about women and things of that nature. You can Google that to see what that is. He was fired from CNN, okay? So I know that there are some people, who are fans of him. When I said that, I was not intending to be disrespectful. I don't know Don Lemon personally, so I just want to make that clear. It wasn't meant to be shady or disrespectful of Don Lemon at all. I respect him a lot, actually. I think he's an amazing reporter. As far as being a journalist who's really hitting the streets, he has all my respect because that's something that a lot of journalists don't do, especially independent journalists. Some of them do it still, like Keith Boykin and Here's Why Kevin Ortega. So there's a few who still hit the streets and they're really like doing their thing. But him doing in Minnesota, hitting the streets in Minnesota, doing coverage out there, it was I was like, this is like, when journalists go to school, that's, we're taught to hit the pavement and get the real answers from the people. You know what I mean? So that's a quality that I really respect. So it wasn't shade. I know a lot of people don't watch my show, but when you put stuff out on the internet, I just want to make that very clear. When I put stuff out, it's not me shading another fellow journalist. I respect him a lot. But I was saying that to say that there are some people who might not always care for his opinion on things or probably see him as misogynistic per the reports that are public information. So that's not my personal things towards Don Lemon. I don't know him. I'm not making anything up. I'm not lying or anything like that. That's something that, CNN let him go. Okay. So I just wanted to make that clear because someone in the comments, they were like, well, what did he do? You're saying that he did a lot. My rebuttal to that was go Google it because it's public information. Okay. This is not about what he has done. I was just pointing that out when I was breaking down his whole back and forth with Nicki Minaj. I was like, I'm not trying to really pick a side per se, although Nicki Minaj annoys me. You get me? But Don Lemon, so outside of that, in regards to the situation, he's standing up. He's standing up. So let me get really quickly back to this brief summary here. Charges and allegations. So there was a federal indictment on charges of conspiracy and interfering with the First Amendment rights of worshipers. The allegations, okay, so prosecutors claim that Lemon and others did not just report, but actively participated in interrupting the church service. Okay, now the defense is saying that the defense is Lemon's team here. Lemon's team argues that he was present solely as a journalist, and the arrest is a violation of press freedom. The arrest has drawn criticism from media advocates, has drawn criticism from Mayor Karen Bass. In multiple reports from news outlets, she said that he was arrested for quote unquote simply doing his job. Okay, so yeah, that's just a brief summary of what's going on. But I want to dig a little bit deeper because there were other individuals that were arrested as well. I mentioned to you all earlier that the pastor who was interviewed by Don Lemon, he was accused of being an ICE agent. Okay, so now we're taking it to him being arrested. Everyone is shocked. I woke up this morning and that was the first thing I saw. I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, okay, because I had to go to work, and that was the first thing I saw this morning. You know, and when I read it, I immediately shared it on my story. I was shocked, like I was so gagged. I was like, they didn't arrest Don Lemon, and I immediately thought of Nicki Minaj's whistleblow. To be honest with you, so after I saw that Georgia Ford was also arrested, and the Black Lives Matter leader, I believe his name is Traherne Cruz. Hopefully, I said that correctly. Traherne. I don't know how to say his name. Okay, we'll get to it in the article here. All right, so after appearing in court, so he was taken into custody. After appearing in court, Lemon was released from custody a few hours ago, about 6 or 7 hours ago or so. He told media outside of the courthouse that he was arrested for covering the news, adding, "I will not be silenced," end quote. And let me backpedal here. I am using a BBC article today. That's BBC.com News. The headline reads, "Former CNN host Don Lemon charged in anti-ICE protest at Minnesota church." It was written by Brandon Drennan. Okay. Or Dranon. Hopefully, I said your last name correctly. If I didn't, my apologies. So, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, said he was charged with quote unquote a conspiracy to deprive rights and quote unquote violation of the FACE Act by allegedly interfering in someone's First Amendment rights by force. Lemon went into the city's church in St. Paul on January 18th with protesters who said one of the pastors was an immigration enforcement official. So one of the protesters said that. Lemon, he is an independent journalist. I already told you how he was taken into custody. When he was taken into custody by federal agents on Thursday, which was yesterday, January 29th, he did not enter a plea in court, according to BBC. Here is a statement from Lemon. "Last night, the DOJ sent a team of federal agents to arrest me in the middle of the night for something that I have been doing for the last 30 years, and that is covering the news. I have spent my entire career covering the news. I will not stop now. In fact, there is no more important time than right now, this very moment, for a free and independent media that shines a light on the truth and holds those in power accountable." Now, we're going to take a pause from that. Reporter hat off. As a journalist myself, journalists are taught to tell the truth regardless of anyone or anything or any entity. So when you are a reporter or a journalist, it is very serious to us. We're not, these are for journalists who write, these are for journalists who are on television, these are for citizen journalists, these are for independent journalists. Ethically, you are responsible for always telling the truth no matter what. You get what I'm saying? So I'm getting a little passionate about it because it's something that the tenets of journalism, like we take that extremely, extremely seriously. So, okay, so let me put my reporter hat back on. So, Lemon has been charged with the violation of the FACE Act. And the FACE stands for Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances and Places of Religious Worship, which is a law that typically has been used to crack down on demonstrations at abortion clinics, but also prohibits obstructing access to houses of worship. All right. So, yeah, one of Don Lemon's attorneys here, his name is Abe Lowell. I believe that's Abe. It's ABBE. It's Abby or Abe. I've never seen that name before. Okay, we're gonna go with Abe. So Abe Lowell, who is an attorney for Don Lemon, he released a statement posted to Lemon's Instagram account. It said that Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court. The lawyer also added, "This unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from the many crisis facing this administration will not stand." That's what the attorney said. Lowell said Lemon had been arrested while he was in Los Angeles covering the Grammys. Already said that. Now let's go ahead and get into the other people. So U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said 3 others had been arrested as well. So this is all happening literally this started happening Thursday night, Friday morning. Now, those other individuals, 3 others who were arrested, was local independent journalist Georgia Fort, along with activist Traheem John Cruz, and Jamel Lydell Lundy. I said Trahern earlier because I think someone had a typo. People have been spelling his name wrong all day. So according to BBC, it's Trahem. That's Trahem. Okay. So Traheem Jean Cruz and Jamel Lydell Lundy. All right. So Georgia Ford is also an independent journalist. There was a video of her on live stream, literally on live stream with her phone. And the federal immigration officers were literally outside of her home knocking on the door saying that, we have a court order, we have a grand jury court order, we have a form to arrest you. Okay. She was in the home with her family and her children. And she was, live streaming. I believe she was on Instagram Live. She was live streaming, and she was telling everyone, just to look out for her and what was happening to her.
Okay, well, this is really scary. There's kids in the house. You guys have not been really friendly in the community. And to me, this seems a little, can I finish, sir? Can I finish? Can I finish?
Get your phone.
This seems a little bit aggressive to have all these cars in our cul-de-sac, 2, 3 agents, and now I saw the one disappear to the back. So to me, this is a little aggressive to just serve a warrant. Slide the warrant. Let me see the warrant. Okay, and that to me, what I have been told, is not a judicial warrant that has me to have to open the door for you.
Do you want to wear my black boots?
You guys, I wanted to alert the public that agents are at my door right now. They're saying that they were able to go before a grand jury sometime, I guess, in the last 24 hours. And that they have a warrant for my arrest. I've talked to my attorney, and I'm being advised to go with them, I guess, down to Whipple. And my children are here. They're impacted by this. This is all stemming from the fact that I filmed a protest as a member of the media. We are supposed to have our constitutional right of the freedom to film, to be a member of the press. I don't feel like I have my First Amendment right as a member of the press, because now federal agents are at my door arresting me for filming the church protest a few weeks ago. Again, I don't have a long time here, you guys, but I wanted you to know, for me, agents are at my door right now. My attorney has spoken with them. I did send a relative outside to talk to them. They're showing some type of documentation, apparently, that they got an indictment from a grand jury. I knew that I was on a defendant's list. I did not publish it because it was under seal. And so we've done everything that we can to try and abide by, the advice of our attorneys. But right now, you guys, I wanted you to know I'm going to have to hop off here and surrender to agents as a member of the press. I filmed the church protest a few weeks ago, and now I'm being arrested for that. It's hard to understand how we have a constitution, constitutional rights, when you can just be arrested for being a member of the press. We've seen all these violations. All right, you guys, I gotta go. They're knocking.
Yep, she's coming right now.
Give me 1 second.
You captured video of your own arrest. federal agents outside your home. Can you just talk about that experience?
As journalists, we never want to be the story, but unfortunately, I did find myself in a predicament where I felt that I needed to be able to tell my own story, that I needed the world to see that journalism is on trial, that we are at a state in our nation where if you are documenting what's happening, you may be criminalized for it. You may be arrested. And so I think what is happening in Minnesota overall should be quite alarming to the entire nation. I think what happened to me today as an independent journalist, what happened to Don Lemon being arrested for reporting what's happening, I think people should be alarmed. And I think mainstream media should also be really concerned because if they can criminalize a journalist here in Minnesota, whether you're independent or not, I think that we've seen a track record where this is just going to continue to escalate.
You have no doubt that this is meant to intimidate not just yourself and Don Lemon and the others who were charged, but journalists everywhere.
I would ask you, how does it feel to you to see a journalist arrested for simply reporting the news? I would challenge every journalist in America to ask themselves how it felt to them today to see their colleagues be arrested for reporting the news. And if any of them say that it made them fearful, it made them concerned, it made them second guess going out tomorrow and covering what's happening in their communities, then yeah, I would say that that was probably the intent. It does send a chilling message to our entire industry.
There is a lot going on. One of the quotes that she said in her home here, and I'll post the video here, but she said in quote, "Agents are at my door right now. My children are here. They're impacted by this." So that was one of the things that Georgia Ford said. According to BBC here, President Donald Trump's administration initially sought to charge 8 people involved in the Minnesota church protests with conspiring to deprive rights and interfering with someone's religious freedom in a house of worship, but a magistrate judge who reviewed the evidence approved charges for only 3 of those involved, excluding Lemon. The government challenged that decision, but an appeals court suggested prosecutors take the case to a federal grand jury, a panel of citizens that evaluates if there is enough evidence to charge someone in a case. So, a long-standing Trump critic, Lemon was fired from CNN in April 2023 after 17 years with the company. The morning show host had apologized for on-air comments that Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley, then 51, was past her prime. That goes into the misogynistic comments, okay, that I mentioned earlier. So for those of you who are asking me what he did wrong, there were claims of misogyny, but he did say that she was past her prime. That was Nikki Haley. That was a very public thing. Go Google it. Do not get in the comments asking me what he said was wrong. Look it up. I did not make that up. Okay, so let's see here. Now, in the Minnesota church protest, he live streamed with protesters on YouTube. The broadcast began with Lemon standing with the group in a car park where he says, "This is an operation that is secret." So he said that according to BBC. Continuing what he said, "I can't tell you what is going on, but you're going to watch it live unfold here on the Don Lemon Show." So he followed the group, whom he called, in quotes, resistance protesters, into the church, initially without his camera operator. His microphone picked up audio of a woman shouting, "Excuse me, Pastor." Protesters chant "Justice for Renee Good," referring to the U.S. citizen who was fatally shot earlier this month in January. So, they were protesting all of this. She was shot in her vehicle on January 7th during a confrontation with a federal immigration officer, aka, agent in Minneapolis. We all saw the video. It was very graphic. It was very sad. All right, so footage showed a chaotic scene unfolding inside the church, which belongs to the Southern Baptist Convention, as protesters and members of the congregation shout at each other. All right, so Don Lemon he basically got up there with the pastor. Okay, so Lemon repeatedly says that he is there as a journalist and is unaffiliated with demonstrators. He says here in quote, "We're not part of the activists, but we're here just reporting on them." All right. The pastor says this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship. Harmeet Dillian of the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division said during an interview with podcaster Megyn Kelly on Friday, in quote, "We're going to pursue this to the ends of the earth." The White House appeared to celebrate the arrest of Don Lemon, posting a photo of Lemon on its official X account with the caption, "When life gives you lemons," next to an emoji of chain links. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass called the detention of Lemon shocking and alarming. CNN said it raised in quote, "profoundly concerning questions about press freedom and the First Amendment." The network said it would follow Lemon's case closely. This is the second high profile incident this month of the Trump administration investigating a journalist, raising the alarm of free speech advocates. On the 14th of January, the FBI showed up unannounced to the home of Washington Post reporter with a search warrant and seized her devices over the alleged leak of classified information, although she herself was not charged with any crime. So that was the first person who was arrested earlier this month. I learned something new because I didn't even hear about this first person who got arrested by the FBI. They don't even have her name in the article here, but this other journalist was already arrested. And that was orchestrated, by our current administration here. To close out this BBC article here, protests are continuing in Minnesota, where an operation by federal immigration officers has sparked confrontations that have left two U.S. citizens unalived, Renee Good, and who was a mother of three, and Mr. Alex Preddy, who was a nurse. So there you have it. That is the report.
I will not stop now. I will not stop ever. Last night, the DOJ sent a team of federal agents to arrest me in the middle of the night for something that I've been doing for the last 30 years, and that is covering the news.
You see, that's where he's wrong. He wasn't just covering the news. So let's start with the overall frame. This isn't a free speech case. It's not a journalism case. It's not a protest case. It's a criminal conspiracy case. The First Amendment protects your right to speech. It protects your right to protest. It does not protect you from unlawful conduct. So to convict him on conspiracy, prosecutors don't need to show violence. They don't need to show him being loud or shouting. They don't need to show him being the leader. They don't need to show a written plan. They likely need three things. Number one, an agreement. I'll explain what that is here in a second. Two, intent to interfere with the protected right. And three, overt acts in furtherance of that conspiracy. And that is where Don Lemon's own words are a problem for him. But now let me go back and let me explain what I meant by agreement. So in federal law, the agreement means you knew the plan, you understood the unlawful goal, and you chose to act in coordination with that anyway. You don't have to organize it, you don't have to lead it, you just have to know what's going on and go along with it anyway. Now let's apply this to Don Lemon. He knew there was a clandestine operation. He knew it was designed to disrupt those people's freedom of religion. He knew secrecy was required, and he worked to keep it secret. And then he followed that group from the planning of it to the execution of it. That's not like neutral observation. He embedded himself in that operation. And it's clear he intended to play a part in what was taking place. How do we know he was intending to take part in this? He had prior knowledge, he deliberately worked to keep it a secret, and he continued to stay around with these people and participate in what was going on. You don't accidentally participate in something you knew was coming. On top of that, you don't accidentally preserve secrecy, as in helping keep this secret, if you're just a neutral reporter, or if you're just reporting. No, he was operating with these individuals. For example,
After we do this operation, you'll see it live. And these operations are surprise operations. Again, I can't tell you where they're going.
Did you pay attention to what he said? He literally said, and I quote, "After we do this operation." He was in on it. He wasn't some neutral observer. His words tell you where his mind was at. Yeah, I think he's guilty. But that's all I have for now. Don't forget I have a free email newsletter. I actually just sent an article out to my subscribers on Substack about this whole thing, breaking it down in depth.
I'm glad they arrested Don Lemon for his role in the Minnesota church storming. What he did was violate 18 U.S. Code Section 248. This is the FACE Act. Now, some are going to say, hey, that's only about abortion centers. No, it's not. It's also about places of worship like churches, mosques, etc. Now, some are going to say he was just there observing, he was a journalist. No, he was part of the planning process. There's videos of him that he uploaded, he put up, where he's saying, we're going to go somewhere, but I can't tell you. We're going to do something, but I can't tell you. That's called conspiracy. And once he goes there and enters a church with them illegally, he's part of the illegal act. Just because he's interviewing people inside the church does not preclude him from being prosecuted for violating and interrupting their right to religious freedom.
Yeah, so obviously y'all are trained attorneys, so I can only guess which you have already stated, which is the obvious, which is that this is a violation of his constitutional rights. There is a reason that there were multiple judges that refused to go along with this. And frankly, Charles, you've been a prosecutor, and you know what the saying used to be. You can indict a ham sandwich. And frankly, the only thing that this DOJ is good at doing is indicting ham sandwiches. I mean, we know that they indicted the guy that threw a ham sandwich. And guess what? No conviction. We know they indicted Tish James. And guess what? Nothing. We know that they indicted James Comey. We can go down the list. So they are losers. So that is good, right? Like, we know that this is not the creme de la creme. We know that, like, they are scraping the bottom of the barrel. But what is terrible about this is that they are trying to inject a chill effect on all of us. Those of us that want to exercise our First Amendment rights to protest. They decide, let's kill you in the middle of the street. And no, there won't be any type of oversight or accountability for what we do. And then they decide to go after journalists that decide to be on the ground, on the front lines, and telling the truth. And so I think that this is a moment that we all have to sit back, just like everybody felt a way about Kimmel and what they felt like was an attack on Kimmel. And everybody came together. I mean, everybody, right? They were like, oh, y'all gonna cancel Kimmel? Y'all can't do that. Let me tell you something. This is way worse. They incarcerated this man. They incarcerated this woman, right? Like, we know that they went after two African-American journalists. Like, this is not by accident. And as I continue to say about the broken systems that we have in this country, this is all a part of the design.
I think this is going to be the thing that breaks my brain. This has got to be it. We've sat through so many horrors, but this is so friggin' ridiculous that my brain can't even process it. They arrested Don Lemon last night. Don Lemon, the independent journalist, he used to work at CNN. You guys know Don Lemon. He gets hammered on New Year's. That Don Lemon, the DOJ, the federal agents arrested him last night. So I go look. I'm like, what's the last thing that Don Lemon did before the feds arrested him? And it was this. That's right. He saw Cat's Eye live. Don Lemon discovered Cat's Eye like he's gay black Columbus or something. I don't know, but he was enjoying the show. And then he leaves the show and he gets kidnapped by masked federal agents, okay? That's gnarly, all right? We don't have a First Amendment anymore. They're arresting him for pointing a camera at an event. That's what that's what he's being arrested for, okay? We don't have a Bill of Rights anymore because everything's gnarly.
That is what happened, okay? So I won't get into an analysis because I really don't want this to be a long video because I feel like you all don't like the long videos. I have some other articles here. I won't get into it here, but what I'll do is I'll just link them in the description so you can all read them about if a person can actually protest outside of a church or inside of a church and so forth, right? Because, you know, here's the thing here. That is ultimately the debate, right? That is the debate. On one end, you have journalists who are like, look, this is a violation of my freedom of speech, which rings truth, right? But then on another end, you have a pastor, you have people who are literally in the middle of a service, right? So there you have it there. So that is my brief report. Drop down below and tell me what you think. I really don't want this video to be longer than what it was. So Any other supportive information, I will link. There was an opinion piece written by Seth Stern with The Guardian that I will probably link in here as well. He basically wrote how the arrest of Don Lemon is blatant censorship, and he is not the only one. Okay, so Seth Stern basically wrote that in his op-ed piece. Now, he basically elaborated how the two federal laws that they're using against Lemon are basically being wielded against journalists. It's basically being used against journalists when journalists do have the right. Journalists have certain freedom of press. Like there are things. I'm saying it kind of wonky right now because I'm a little tired, but there is freedom of the press, so that is something that does exist. And basically, Seth Stern did a really, really good op-ed about it, so I will attach it here because I don't want to keep you long. So, my question to you is, how do you feel about Don Lemon's arrest, Georgia Ford, right along with the two others? Do you feel like, I don't, here's the thing. As I ask these questions, I'm not trying to minimize Don Lemon's experience or journalist experiences. So, the way that I'm talking, do not take things out of context. Do not, because some people, they take things out of context. I just want to ask my viewers these questions, though. Which side do you feel strongly about, right? Do you feel like the protesters and Don Lemon going into the church to interview the pastor who was accused of being a federal ICE agent, an immigration officer, or whatever they want to call it, right? Do you feel like journalists had a right to interview the protesters and also interview the pastor? Because as a journalist, you have to get both sides. That's not a personal thing, right? So when you're a journalist, it doesn't matter what a journalist agrees with, right? I think a lot of people get that confused. I know that we live in an age where you have so many people who get on camera, they give their opinions. You have journalists who are on TV who give their opinion. When they sit down at a round table and they talk about politics and stuff, they're giving their views and their opinions, right? But when you're actually interviewing subjects, it's not about you. You ask the question. Your job as a reporter, as a journalist, is to get both sides of the equation. There are going to be some times where you can't get both sides because you don't have people who disagree. But true journalism is where you get both sides, right? Don Lemon interviewed the protesters and interviewed the pastor. Now they're saying that there was a video of him sitting with the demonstrators before they went into the church. So if that is true, I don't know if it's true, but what I'm saying, allegedly, if that is true, that's a no-no. You get what I'm saying? Now, here's the thing, though. Some journalists, they get tips from people. That's how you get stories. Obviously, I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, I'm assuming that Lemon and other journalists were tipped about this while they were in Minnesota, because when you're hitting the streets, you need to know where the action is going to happen. And protesters are going to tip you and tell you. They're going to tell you where to go. You get what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, do you feel that as a journalist, Don Lemon, Georgia Ford, do you feel that their violation of the freedom of press was completely violated, right? Their duty, their ethical duty as a journalist, do you feel like that was violated? Do you feel like it wasn't violated? Are you on the other side where you feel like, okay, they walked into the church? At the end of the day, if the journalists walked into the church with the demonstrators without the cameraman, the mic is on, the recorder got a little bit of audio, the lady preaching in the choir, you get me? He walks in without his cameraman, without a proper badge, you get what I'm saying, to identify himself away from the protesters, to not look like he's coming in with the protesters, right? My question, I know I'm a little jumbled here. My question, though, is, do you agree that they interrupted the service? Side note, I was having a conversation with someone earlier about this, and we were talking, and this other person, he was just like, look, at the end of the day, they did interrupt the service. You walked in with the protesters, you interrupted the service. So yes, you're a journalist, but you interrupted the service. You walked in. That's a sticky situation. And with the height of everything, people are accusing the pastor of being an ICE agent. You know what I'm saying? So this is what someone else said that I was talking to earlier today. He was on the side of the place of worship crew, the place of worship community, the faith community. He was on the side of like, look, Rather you're a Christian, rather you're a Muslim, you're at the mosque. He was like, it could have been any type of religious setting. It could have been a Buddhist temple. It could have been a mosque. It could have been a Jewish temple. Hopefully I don't know a lot about Jewish things of that nature, but he was just giving me different examples of places that are places of worship. And when his argument was, look, at the end of the day, regardless you were journalists or not, protesters should not be running into a place of worship. That was his opinion. And I heard him out about that, because he was like, okay, so Don Lemon got arrested, but he was like, at the end of the day, he walked there with the protesters. And then it was funny because when he and I were talking, I was like, but he's a journalist though. Journalists, if a situation is going down, as a reporter, you got to get to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's interesting because here's the thing. He's being charged with conspiracy and all these things like that, with federal charges. They're throwing the book at him, right? But I honestly think that he has a really good case on his hands. I'm probably going to keep following it as well, because honestly, like as a newer journalist, I'm learning in real time as I'm seeing all this happen. And yes, I have my degree, but it's pivotal moments like this where I'm like, oh, this is juicy, because it's a case study. This is literally like the perfect case study. Like, I can guarantee you, in journalism school, y'all kids who are currently, shout out to Annenberg, shout out to, all the journalism programs and stuff like that. Y'all kids who are in these programs, your professors are going to have you study this case. This is a great case in media law. Like, this is going to be good. Anyways, drop down below and let me all know what you think. I got a little passionate there because I was like, oh, this is going to be like this is going to be good. Sorry, y'all didn't really get to see my eyes this video. I went to the gym and I pulled my hair back a little bit, so my edges was a little crunchy, but it's okay. But I say all that to say, like, the journalism students now, this is like, oh, if you have a good professor who could break all this down for you, you are lucky, because this is going to show y'all, like, this is going to show you that ethically, this is a good case study of journalism ethics. So I really hope, if you are a journalism student, please pay attention to this. Like, I need you to watch the news. I need you to watch this. I hope your professors are having you write papers on this, or write articles on this, or practice things, or just showing you this particular case and having you watch everything that's happening with Don Lemon versus our administration. Okay? Because this is a big deal. This is actually a very big deal. And I know a lot of journalists are very enraged, very upset about it. Journalists, my reporter hat off. I have my sentiments about it as well. So a lot of us are like really upset about this. So yeah, there you have it. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.